Okay, so you want to own a car wash. It sounds like the least glamorous business we have ever looked at. A tunnel, some brushes, some soap, a few dollars a car. Here's why that's wrong, and why some of the most sophisticated investors on earth have spent the last few years quietly buying up hundreds of them. Because the modern car wash isn't really selling car washes anymore. It's selling a monthly subscription. And the beautiful, slightly ruthless part is this. When you sign up for unlimited washes, the business is quietly betting that you won't come. Most members don't. And the moment a car wash figured that out, it stopped being a car wash and started being a software company that happens to own a conveyor belt. But before we get to any of that, let's deal with the first thing that surprises everybody, which is what one of these actually costs. Because if you're picturing a cheap little operation, a hose and a couple of brushes and a teenager with a sponge, put that image away. A modern express car wash tunnel is a genuinely capital-intensive piece of infrastructure, and building one is not a small business decision. It's a multi-million-dollar one. Start with the land, and understand that the land is not incidental. A car wash needs a very particular kind of site. It has to sit on a road with heavy traffic, because your customers are people driving past who make a spontaneous decision. It needs the right ingress and egress, meaning cars must be able to turn in easily and get out easily, ideally without fighting a median or a difficult left turn. It needs enough depth for a queue, because a line of cars waiting to enter is a good problem only if you have somewhere to put them. And it needs room for the vacuum bays, which we will come back to, because they matter more than you think. That describes a prime commercial corner lot on a busy road, which is exactly the kind of dirt that costs real money. Then you build the thing. The tunnel structure itself, the conveyor system that pulls cars through, the arches, the brushes, the blowers, the sensors, the chemical delivery systems. The water treatment and reclamation plant, because a car wash uses an enormous amount of water, and the economics do not work if you buy every gallon fresh and send it down the drain. The point of sale systems, the license plate readers, the gates, the signage, the lighting, and the vacuums. Add it all up, and you are talking about a serious number. Millions of dollars for a business whose product costs the customer roughly the same as a sandwich. Hold on to that fact. Expensive to build, cheap to sell. It sounds like a terrible combination. And for most of this industry's history, it kind of was. What changed is not the tunnel. What changed is how the tunnel gets paid for. And that's where this becomes one of the most interesting business stories of the last decade. Although one other thing changed first, and it's worth a moment, because it's what made everything else possible. The old model was the full-service wash. Cars went through the tunnel, and then a team of people descended on each one, vacuuming the interior, wiping the dash, drying the exterior by hand with towels. It produced a genuinely better result. It also required a large crew, standing around, waiting, on payroll, every single hour you were open, whether cars were coming or not. Look at that from a cost perspective, and you can see the disease immediately. Labor is not a marginal cost. You can dial down when it's quiet. It's a person, and they're there all day. So, on a slow, rainy Tuesday, the full-service wash is paying a full crew to wash almost nothing, and it bleeds. The express model cut all of that away. You go through the tunnel, and then you drive out and do the inside yourself, with the free vacuums. And the moment you delete the crew, the entire cost structure of the business flips. Now, almost all of your cost is in the building, which you already paid for, and almost none of it is in the humans, who you no longer need. That is what turned this from a labor business into an infrastructure business. And an infrastructure business with almost no variable costs is a very, very different animal, as we're about to see. So let's look at the cost structure, because it's genuinely unusual, and it explains everything that follows. You've just spent millions building this thing. Those are your fixed costs, and they are enormous. The loan payment, the property taxes, the insurance, the staff, the electricity to keep the site lit, and the equipment running. Those bills arrive whether you wash 1,000 cars this month or 10,000. Now ask the crucial question. What does it actually cost you in cash to wash one more car? And the answer is almost nothing. A little water, and most of that gets reclaimed, filtered, and used again. A small amount of soap and chemicals. some electricity to run the conveyor and the blowers for the 2 or 3 minutes the car is inside. There is no inventory being consumed in any meaningful sense. There is no additional labor, because the same handful of staff are there whether the tunnel is busy or idle. The marginal cost of one more wash is measured in cents. Sit with what that means, because it is the entire foundation of the modern car wash. You have a business with enormous fixed costs and almost no variable costs, which means there is a level of volume at which you cover everything, and beyond that line, nearly every dollar that comes in falls straight to the bottom. That's ferocious operating leverage. It also means the single most valuable thing in the world to you is not a higher price per wash. It's more washes, or more precisely, more revenue, arriving more reliably from more people. And that, finally, brings us to the thing that transformed this industry. The unlimited monthly membership. Here's the offer. Instead of paying, say, $12 or $15 every time you want your car washed, you pay a flat monthly fee, often somewhere in the range of $20 to $30. And you can come as often as you like. Every day, if you want. Unlimited. Now do the arithmetic from the owner's side, because it is very simple and very revealing. If a single wash sells for around $15 and the monthly plan costs around $25, then the plan only works for the business if the average member comes fewer than about 2 times a month. If members showed up 8 times a month, the owner would be washing their car 8 times for the price of less than 2 washes. On the surface, that looks like a terrifying offer to make. Except, here's what actually happens. They don't come. Overwhelmingly, on average, across the whole membership base, people do not use the thing they signed up for anywhere near as often as they imagined they would. They sign up in a burst of enthusiasm, often on a sunny Saturday when they've just had a great wash and the attendant says the plan pays for itself after 2 visits, which is true. And they picture a version of themselves who swings by every week, who keeps the car immaculate, who is the sort of person who has a clean car. And then life happens. It rains. They're busy. There's a queue and they're in a hurry. They forget. The car gets dirty and they think, I'll go this weekend. And then they don't. And the charge goes through anyway, on the card, silently, every month. You have seen this before. It is exactly the gym membership. It is the streaming service you don't watch. It is the app you subscribe to once. The business model is not selling washes. It is selling the intention to wash. And notice how precisely this inverts something we looked at not long ago. When we talked about self-storage, the whole business rested on the customer never leaving. They keep paying because moving out is painful. Here, the business rests on the customer never showing up. They keep paying because coming in is a small hassle they'll get to later. Same human gap, exploited from opposite ends. In one case, you profit because they can't be bothered to leave. In the other, you profit because they can't be bothered to arrive. And in both cases, the money arrives on the same date every month, regardless. Which is exactly why this industry got so attractive to serious money. Because the moment you have a large base of monthly subscribers, you have transformed a car wash into something else entirely. Look at what happened to the revenue. It used to be a retail business, exposed to the weather, to the season, to whether people happened to feel like it that day. If it rained for 3 weeks, you had a terrible month because nobody washes a car in the rain. With a membership base, the rain no longer matters. In fact, rain is arguably good for you now because the members still pay and they definitely don't come. Your revenue is contractual, recurring, predictable, and it arrives on autopay. It can be forecast. It can be underwritten by a lender. It can be valued by an investor using the same logic they'd apply to any subscription business. The building is still a tunnel with brushes in it. The revenue is now something closer to software. And once you see it that way, watch how the operator's entire attention shifts. They stop obsessing over how many cars they wash today, which is what a car wash owner would care about. And they start obsessing over the numbers a subscription company cares about. How many of the people who paid for a single wash today did we convert into members? That's the capture rate, and it's the first number on the board. It's why the person at the pay station is not simply taking your money, but is telling you, pleasantly and accurately, that the plan pays for itself on the second wash. How many members canceled this month? That's churn, and every point of it is money that will never arrive again. And how long does the average member stay before they cancel? Because that number, multiplied by the monthly fee, is what a single new member is actually worth, and it is the number that tells you how much you can afford to spend to get one. None of those are car wash questions. They're subscription questions, and the operators who ask them beat the operators who don't, comprehensively, while running an identical tunnel with identical brushes and identical soap. All right, now let's talk about the physical machine, because there's a constraint at the heart of it that shapes the entire design of the site. Your ceiling is throughput, cars per hour. The tunnel can only process so many vehicles in an hour, and that number is your hard limit on how much of the world you can serve at peak. On a busy Saturday afternoon, if the line is long enough that people drive away, you have lost revenue, you can never recover, because that person is now driving a clean car and does not need you. So everything, and I mean everything, in the design of a modern express wash exists to raise cars per hour. That's why the conveyor exists, pulling vehicles through at a steady rate, rather than letting drivers set the pace. That's why it's called an express exterior wash. Nobody is cleaning your interior. Nobody is hand drying with towels, because those things take time and time is the enemy. That's why the license plate reader exists. So members can be identified and the gate opens without anyone digging out a card. Every one of those decisions shaves seconds off the cycle. And now the one that people never think about, the free vacuums. There's a row of vacuum bays out front, free to use, and everybody assumes they're a nice little perk. They're not a perk. They're a piece of throughput engineering. Think about the problem the owner has. A car comes out of the tunnel, wet and clean, and the driver now wants to do something about the interior. If there were nowhere to go, they would sit right there at the tunnel exit, wiping the dashboard, blocking the car behind them, and the whole line would seize up. The vacuum bays are a place to put those cars. They pull the finished vehicle out of the exit lane immediately, and they keep the tunnel flowing. The vacuums aren't free because the owner is generous. They're free because a car sitting in a vacuum bay is a car that isn't clogging the machine. It is one of the most elegant pieces of hidden design in any retail business, and it's sitting in plain sight at every wash you've ever driven past. So where does the money actually come from? Let's stack the layers. The first and most important is the membership base, which we've covered. This is the foundation, and for a well-run modern operator, it can be the large majority of total revenue. The second layer is the ordinary retail wash. The person who isn't a member, who drives up, pays for one wash, and leaves. This still matters, and it's the top of the funnel because every retail customer is a prospective member and the staff are trained to convert them right there at the pay station. The third layer is the tiers, and this is where the near zero marginal cost becomes almost comical. There is a basic wash, and then there is the better one, and then there is the one with the ceramic coating and the tire shine and the hot wax and the rain repellent. Each tier costs the customer meaningfully more. And what does each tier cost the business? A slightly different mix of chemicals sprayed on for a few extra seconds on a car that was going through the tunnel anyway. The incremental cost of upgrading a customer from the basic wash to the premium one is small. The incremental revenue is not, which is why every pay station on Earth is designed to nudge you up a tier, and why the membership plans themselves come in tiers, with the premium plan being extraordinarily profitable per member. And then there's a fourth category that most people never count at all, and it is a large part of why institutional investors got involved. The real estate. Remember what a car wash site is. A prime commercial pad on a high-traffic road with excellent access. That is genuinely valuable land, and it is valuable independent of what's on it. So when a large investor buys a portfolio of car washes, they are not simply buying tunnels and brushes. They are buying a collection of well-located commercial properties, each of which happens to have a business on it generating reliable, contractual, subscription-like cash flow. That is an extremely appealing package. You get the property, and you get a tenant that pays you predictably every month and cannot easily be replaced by an online competitor because nobody has yet figured out how to wash a car over the internet. And there's a piece of financial engineering that sits on top of this, and it's worth understanding because it's a large part of what the money was actually doing. An investor can buy the car wash business and the land together and then sell the land to a separate property investor and immediately lease it back, agreeing to pay rent on the site they just sold. It sounds circular. It isn't. What it does is convert a big pile of real estate value into cash, right now, which the buyer can then use to go and acquire more car washes, which they can do the same thing to. Notice what that machine does. It lets a buyer recycle the same capital again and again, rolling up small independent operators into a large branded chain at speed. It's why you may have watched a dozen locally owned washes in your area disappear and reappear over a couple of years wearing the same new logo. That was not a wave of car wash enthusiasm. That was a financing structure, working exactly as designed. But it also quietly changes the business, because the site that used to be owned free and clear is now paying rent every month, forever, to a landlord. And that rent is a new fixed cost, sitting on top of all the others in a business whose whole beauty was supposed to be operating leverage, which matters enormously the moment anything goes wrong. And as we're about to see, something is about to go wrong. So, stack it all up. Ferocious operating leverage. A subscription base that pays whether or not it shows up. High margin upsells at almost no incremental cost. And a portfolio of prime commercial real estate underneath it all. On paper, it is close to a perfect small cap business. And that is exactly why the money came. Which brings us, inevitably, to the trapdoor. And here it is. And it's genuinely nasty because it comes from the same place the opportunity did. There is no moat. Nothing whatsoever stops someone from building a car wash across the street from yours. There's no license to obtain like a casino, no seabed lease like a marina, no appellation, no frozen supply of anything. There is a corner lot, there is a construction crew, and there is a lender who has read the same investor presentation you did. And crucially, the returns that attracted you are the exact signal that attracts them. So the capital that flooded into this sector did not just discover a good business. It also, by flooding in, began building the thing that destroys it. In market after market, you can now watch it happen. One express wash opens, then a second, 2 miles away, then a third. And they are all fishing in the same finite pond of commuters driving the same roads. Now watch what happens to the model under that pressure. Because this is the part that is genuinely different from any other business we've looked at. The subscription, which was your greatest strength, becomes a cage. And it locks you in, not the customer. Here's why. You spent millions on the tunnel. Your entire economic model depends on a large base of members paying a fixed monthly fee. But that fee is a published, advertised, competitive number, and your new neighbor is opening with an aggressive introductory offer to fill their empty tunnel. So you cannot raise your price without watching members cancel, because canceling is a 2-minute job on a phone. And you cannot lower it either, because your fixed costs are enormous, and your entire underwriting assumed a certain revenue per member. You are stuck. You have committed millions of dollars of concrete and steel against a monthly price you no longer control. And there's a second, stranger problem, hiding inside the membership itself. Ask what happens when a member actually uses the plan. If a customer starts coming 3 times a week, they are, in pure unit economics, costing you money. They are consuming throughput, occupying a slot in your finite cars per hour capacity, and displacing a retail customer who would have paid full price. And you cannot stop them because you sold them unlimited. So, in a competitive market, your worst-case scenario is a base of highly engaged members who genuinely love the product and use it constantly. Read that again. The customers who like you most are the ones eroding your margin, and the ones who make you money are the ones who forgot you exist. That is a genuinely bizarre position for any business to occupy, and it is a direct consequence of selling unlimited access to a physically constrained thing. So, let's answer the question we started with. What do you actually own when you own a car wash? You do not own a cleaning business. You own a piece of prime commercial real estate with a very expensive machine on it. And attached to that machine is a subscription product that monetizes the difference between what people intend to do and what they actually do. That's the honest structure. You are selling the intention to wash. The wash itself is the thing you hope they never get around to. And the entire question of whether you get rich or go broke is not about the tunnel or the chemicals or how clean the cars come out. It is about whether you got to your corner before 3 other people got to theirs. So, should you buy one? Here's the honest split. The optimistic version goes like this. You build on a genuinely excellent site on a heavily traveled commuter road in a market that is not yet saturated. You convert an unusually high share of your retail traffic into members, and your membership base becomes deep, contractual, and boring, arriving every month regardless of weather. Your marginal costs stay near zero, so above break-even, the money simply falls through. Your premium tiers do the rest. And underneath all of it, you own the pad, which appreciates whether or not the tunnel does. When you eventually sell, an institutional buyer values you as a subscription business sitting on real estate and pays accordingly. It is one of the most quietly excellent small businesses available to a private owner. The harder version looks like this. Your site was good, which is precisely why 2 more washes get built within a couple of miles of it, funded by people who read the same research you did. They open with aggressive introductory pricing. Your member growth stalls, then reverses. You can't raise prices because members leave with a tap. You can't cut them because your fixed costs are enormous and your loan is not negotiable. And you sit there in a multi-million-dollar tunnel, watching cars drive past you to the new place, unable to move a single one of your levers. And notice what decides between those 2 futures. Almost none of it is how well you wash a car. Because in the end, a car wash doesn't sell clean cars. It sells the version of yourself who is going to keep the car clean. And that person, conveniently, almost never shows up.